RodneyABrooks.com. Today we're talking to Deborah Owens, founder of WealthyU. Welcome, Deborah.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Rodney.
So tell us about WealthyU.
Well, at Wealthy You, we're on a mission to help a million women of color reach $1 million in net worth. And so our goal really is to provide the knowledge and also the accountability and support to achieve those goals.
Okay. So you have, I mean, you've given financial advice for everyone, but you have a focus for women of color. What are some of those issues that make you want to focus on women of color? What are the issues that are unique to Black women in particular?
Well, I really have narrowed it down to sort of four myths that we've been told that achieve financial success, but they're really obsolete now. And if you think about it, we can even go back to our own parents and their sort of roadmap to financial success. And for many of them, it was get more education, get a career, spend time with an organization that would eventually give you a pension. Well, as you well know in your work, you know that the pension is really obsolete and that roadmap to success really no longer exists. And so, what I have found in my work in coaching thousands of women is that what has happened is the first they fell into the myth that a more education equals more income. And we know just from the statistics that a Black woman with a bachelor's degree still earns less than a white male with a high school college degree. What we also know is that what we were also told is that student loan debt was good debt. And what we know to be true is that student loan debt is not good debt. What we find is our students, our people of color, are coming out with almost double the amount in student loan debt, and they're not getting the prerequisite income, particularly when they start. And then finally, that being loyal to an organization for years would get you that golden ticket to a pension. And what we know is that that risk really has been given to the employee in the form of 401ks, 403bs, and have it. And then finally, that the stock market is risky. And part of that really myth is that the major thing that we were supposed to learn in our formal education, we were never exposed to, and that's how the financial markets work. And so that's really what we look at Wealthy You as the opportunity to really close that wealth gap. We believe certainly the systemic issues are there, but that the knowledge gap is the really issue that we want to attack.
Okay, so you do a lot of coaching. Okay, so tell me, what are the big issues is when it comes to Black women? Is it that they are afraid to invest in the market? Is it that they're facing all the things you've discussed? But when it comes to getting down, okay, this is what you need to do. What are the issues there?
Well, the issues were really, if you think about it, there's a direct correlation between knowledge and fear, right? So the reason Black women specifically are, and women of color, is because they're first generation investors. I mean, one of the things that I recognized after my third year in coaching was, whoa, knowledge about how to build wealth is inherited, right? So if your parents didn't invest, if you didn't have come from a family that had a financial advisor, a trusted advisor, then more than likely you're not going to get access to that knowledge. Now, here's the other thing is every day a person of color reaches out to a financial services institution, and because they are not looked at as high net worth potential, most times they're not giving the kind of counsel and education that someone with assets of, let's say, 250,000 or more. And so as a result, people start later. They feel like that the whole world of investing is not for them. And so those are the systemic, right, as well as and I really would say those are the systemic barriers to really mastering the art of investing.
So I'm sure you have some success stories. Okay, and I know we can't name names, but tell me about a couple of that you actually got through, and you've just done it long enough that you could see, okay, this is somebody that I could be proud of, that they listen to me.
Well, actually, if they go on my website, one of the objectives of Wealthy You is really to make the world of investing accessible and for women of color to see themselves. And so, specific, particularly with the women that I personally invest on one-on-one coaching. That's one of the commitments that I ask them at the very beginning, and that is, when you achieve success yourself, would you be willing to share that with others? And so as a result, if they go to wealthyu.com, they'll see pictures of women in the media being profiled about their success. And so, one woman specifically was uh, interviewed, and one of the things that she shared was, when I met her, she was not putting in the maximum contribution to her 401k. And it was clear that she had the income, right? Her investments were not optimized properly. And so that's really where we start is, our mantra is analyze, optimize, maximize. And so we're really teaching women how to understand what investment opportunity levers they need to pull. And everything is different, for each different situation. So in this case, she had just sold her home. She was going to have a significant amount of assets, and I also knew that she needed to reduce her tax liability. So as a result, she ended up having to, because she couldn't put that money in her 401k. For 3 months, she put every dime into that 401k so that she can make the maximum. And now she's on nearly at, that was about 5 years ago, and now she's almost at that seven-figure mark. Another woman that we just interviewed, Belinda. When I worked with Belinda's probably one of my longest members in Wealthy You, but she's now beyond the seven-figure mark. And it was really a function of her understanding. She had assets and other plans that she wasn't aware of. Many times people leave employers and they don't realize that there are pension benefits or money that they can move. And so, what I'm finding is that because people don't understand the nomenclature or the jargon, they're getting information and they really don't understand what it means. And here's what I've seen though, Rodney, is when women are wired to invest, because typically they're CFOs of their own households. And really what we show them how to use that same knowledge, how that really translates, your own personal financial statement is very similar to a business's financial statement, right? Really looking at what drives a company. Typically, that's earnings. And just like in your personal finances, the ability to have money left over or a profit. And so, those are just, some of the transformations that we've had the opportunity to see. And, we're probably have had a few thousand women actually go through Wealthy You. And so now we're really looking at collaborating with other organizations that can help us help more women get further faster.
Okay, so um, what about financial planning? Why don't we see more Black women or Black people in particular, and Black people in general, finding and hiring a financial planner? Is that Does that go back to the history and the family knowledge and that
Now,
kind of?
but here's the truth, and you know, I do a lot of work with financial advisors. I've worked with very large financial institutions and actually training advisors because that's the world that I came out of. Right, I actually ran the West Coast and for a very large investment organization with hundreds of advisors. And here's the truth, and here's the hard truth: is there needs to be more. Uh, Women of color and people of color in the industry itself, right? Because if you've had no exposure to the industry, typically what you want to see is there's someone in there that looks like you, which oftentimes is why women of color are attracted to WealthyU because they see people like themselves. And so that is a function of the institutions themselves and their business model, right? The way the investment industry is set up is assets under management. And so, if you're a first generation investor, typically the largest amount of your assets are going to be in a retirement plan, right? And so, you're not bringing a lot of assets outside. And so, it really limits the ability for financial advisors to get to that assets under management that is going to allow them to be successful in the industry itself.
So when you consider yourself a counselor, how much is psychology? I mean,
Most of it is attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. That's where we start. So in Wealthy You, where we would really start at is the mindset. We call it mindset strategy execution. And you can't have a strategy if you don't have the mindset and the beliefs that you can. So underneath that mindset, it's attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. And so much of our thinking is integral to our own belief system. And so if you didn't see your parents invest, or if your parents were risk averse, or if maybe in the 2008 stock market crash saw your investments go down, you're very fearful, right? And so your belief then in your mindset, really it goes back fundamentally to that success roadmap that we were taught, career, job, pension, right? And so it's really helping people to understand that that's what we call the income mindset in Wealthy You. It's really making the shift to the wealth mindset and really understanding that you now have to be that pension that your parents had, you have to be able to create it. And the way you do that is through investing.
okay, and what about credit? We know there have been issues with Black people in general when it comes to getting credit. But talk about Black women and their ability or lack of ability to get bank credit. But I also want you to let that morph into credit scores and what people need to know about credit and credit scores.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and that's why one of one of the focuses we have four pillars in Wealthy You, and the focus really is understanding that at the end of the day, the focus is on increasing your net worth. So if you begin to make decisions on whether or not it increases your net worth, you're going to make different decisions. And typically what happens is in Wealthy You, the first thing they do is create a personal financial statement. And in that personal financial statements, it's the formula assets, right? Minus liability is equal net worth. And when you really began to see how that credit and how the debts, the liability side are impacting your net worth, and you begin to reduce those liabilities, typically what happens is your credit score is impacted, right? With that focus. So we look at it very holistically. So typically what you'll see is women understanding that, hey, one of the your biggest asset is in most cases your mortgage. One of the ways you can do that is refi, right? Then there's a real focus on really eliminating debt because that frees up more money to invest. And then one of the other areas is systems. And so when you set up your system so that your debts are automatically being paid off, then your frequency, right, of payment, you reduce the amount of credit outstanding, and it's just understanding how credit scores are calculated and how you can best influence them. Again, that is a knowledge gap, right? And what I see though is uh, people getting caught up. Now you have the BNPL, right? The buy now, pay later. And you're really thinking that that's another trap, because at the end of the day that is credit, right? Or you go into any department store and they ask you, you can get a discount or more credits. And so it's the awareness, the fundamental awareness of having a long-term focus and making your everyday decisions, right, really align to what it is you're trying to achieve, and ultimately net worth, and ultimately financial independence, where your money is working for you and you no longer have to work for it.
Okay, so while we're on credit, let's talk about credit card debt. Okay, which financial planners, financial advisors call bad debt. If there is a bad debt, that's one of them. Um, so um, do we okay when you're counseling people, do they really realize how much credit card debt they have before they put it down on the paper for you?
Well, it's interesting. One of the first things we do in Wealthy You, so in Wealthy You, it's all coaching. We're not even counseling, right? So the difference between coaching and counseling or advising, right, is you're acting more as a prescriptive. You're giving a prognosis. If you do X, Y, Z, this is what happens. Where in Wealthy You, we want you to discover that answer. And so it's really experiential. And so the first thing that we do is, we typically, how people find out about WealthyU is through our 5-day Savvy Makeover Challenge. And so in that makeover challenge, we really have you take out your bank statements, really look at where your money is going. We get into emotional triggers so that you can understand, well, now I want you to look at that, and how are you feeling when you made those different purchases, right? And then it's really looking at all of your debt and really achieving a goal. So part of it is that is the socioeconomic circle that you're in, right? So some people feel like credit is great, and I remember one of our members talking about, she saw her mother have her credit cards bundled up around a rubber band, and so to her, credit was something that you did, right? And so until that is challenged and you really see how it's impacting your ability to really achieve a sense of financial peace and control, and that's where we focus on, right? Once you discover that, then and only then can you change it. And so the way we look at it is, you cannot change what you will not acknowledge. And so typically that's avoidance. But then when you're in a community of other people who are also on this journey too, and they're saying, oh my God, we have one of our members, you can see her story on our website, a negative 5,700 in net worth, and within 6 months she was at a half a million. Now, why was that? Very high earner, right? Lots and lots of debt. And so when she finally decided, look, I'm earning too much money, upwards multi six figures. So here's the other thing I want people to understand is that we have bought into the concept that more income will solve our problems. Biggie was right when he said more money, more problems, or next level new devil. There really is depending upon your psychological makeup and attitude, that your circle will also validate you on, is that you're making this money, you deserve it, right? And so then you feel like if you can hit a certain number, that's going to solve your problem. Well, what we know is true is that you can go broke, right, earning a lot of income. And that's why high earners sometimes file for bankruptcy. So, yeah, it really is a function of just being, I believe, in a circle of people who are like minded and understand that the ultimate goal to financial, what do I want to call, independence, and the ability to not have to worry really is being very resourceful with the whatever, the resources you have.
Okay, let's talk about retirement for a minute so um, so many people haven't saved enough for retirement, and and you hear the stories all the time about people stepping into a financial planner's office or financial advisor office and say, "Oh, I want to retire in 2 years," and they're like, I don't know." So what do I'm sure some of the people that you coach want to retire at a certain time, and then you look at it, and what do you tell them when it's clear that they have not saved nearly enough for retirement?
Well, you know what? That's the first pillar. What is your wealth gap, right? And so one of the things that we do in Wealthy You is they actually have a kind of simulator, right? It's an Excel spreadsheet. And what it has them do is really look at, you know, where how much they're earning now, right? When they retire, has them plug in their social security benefit, any pension income, and their existing assets, and certainly using a rate of return, typically 8%, in terms of projecting how that money's going to grow. And they discover when their money is going to run out, right? So that in itself says, that's not me telling you. Like, I believe that when someone asks me a question, well, Dad, what do you think about this? I say, well, let's crunch the numbers, right? Because the numbers will tell us. And so typically when they see that gap, they also see what other investment opportunities that they have. So what typically ends up happening is then they start increasing the contributions that they're making. They go from typically an average of 5% to 15 to 20%. So they're making that maximum, to particularly if they're over 50, right? They want to take advantage of that catch up. They're contributing even more to their now it doesn't happen overnight, but it is interesting. Within 6 months, typically in our community, people have moved from that 5 to 15%, right? And then the next step is really looking at, so often people don't have, and here's the most interesting thing that I found since launching Wealthy U in 2015. Typically, the reason people are behind is not necessarily that they're not putting as much in, it's because their investments are invested in target date funds, where someone else has allocated. Typically, when you look in those funds, you see a lot of underperforming funds or weighted in categories, and so often it's a function of them not having their investments optimized so that they can compound at a higher rate of return.
Okay, so my final my final question. Okay, it's a multi-part question, but
Okay.
okay, but someone comes to you 50 or older, um, and um, they need some help in terms of getting in terms of saving for retirement. Okay, they have not saved enough. What Give me three pieces of advice you would give to them better prepare themselves for retirement, which may, because longevity is increasing, which may last 30 years or so.
So typically, when the thing is really level setting and giving a sense of, okay, well, what is that wealth gap? What is the gap from where you are right now to where you need to be? Then, secondly, really helping them to leverage all their benefits that they have through their employer or outside, and to identify if there are any other assets. One of the most effective tools that people have at their disposal is their Social Security earnings record. So I really suggest that they go to ssa.gov, look at their earnings history, and really look at, there's some employers that you may have accumulated benefits. So we want to identify all the assets. Next, to make a commitment to move from the amount that you're contributing, that within the next 6 months you're going to either increase, by 5%, or really make it a goal to get to 15%. And typically what people find is their take home pay has not changed a great deal, particularly if they're earning over six figures. And then lastly, to find that opportunity to earn more money, there are only two things you can do. You can either cut your expenses, which is what our Savvy Money Makeover Challenge is about, but really focusing on making more money. And sometimes that conversation really comes in the finding a new opportunity, going with an organization that has more benefits, that's going to has an employee stock purchase program or option. So it's really learning how to get the best return, not only on your investments, but also your earning potential. Because here's the biggest thing. One of the things that, and I thought this was so interesting, I think it was Warren Buffett said this. What do you think your highest earning, at what age are you going to earn your most income? What age do you think it is?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yes,
Oh, I think at the end of your career.
it's at 60. Right? And
Yes.
so we have this such a focus on, regret, financial regrets. And I tell everybody in Wealthy You, don't look that way. Don't look there, because that's not where you're going, right? So we really have them create their wealthy vision. It's 10 years from now, what happened? We walk our way back, and then what are the strategies you need to put into place? How, once we change that mindset, what is the strategy, and really executing on that strategy? And it's amazing how momentum, right, really takes place. And we see people really understanding that they really have an opportunity to accelerate their financial growth and to take ownership of their future as well.
Okay. So tell us your website.
So my website is www, or just wealthyu.com. If you just put wealthyu.com, you're going to come right to our website. You can join our free Facebook community, and that's where you're going to be around thousands of other women who are on their journey, and are really focused on achieving the goal, where we don't even call it retirement in Wealthy You. We call it financial independence. That point at which your money works and you no longer have to. And that can happen at any age.
Okay. Well, thank you, Deborah. We're talking to Deborah Owens, founder of WealthyU. Thank you so much. We appreciate the time you gave us today.
Thank you for having me.